Weapons might be the craziest horror movie of the year. One day at 2:17 a.m., 17 children all ran out of their homes and never came back. That is the intriguing and mysterious premise of the new film by Zach Cregger, the man who wrote and directed Barbarian, which was one of my favorite films of that year. One of my favorite theater experiences in recent memory, as I just sat there on the edge of my seat having no idea where it was going. So I was extremely hyped for anything that he was going to do next, and the marketing surrounding this made it seem like it was going to be very similar in that it was going to go in some crazy directions that you did not see coming. It was one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and after seeing it, I can say that I am so happy to have Zach Cregger around making horror movies. I am absolutely there day one for anything else he does. This story is told in a really cool way where it's segmented into chapters following the perspective of different characters. As we're dealing with the aftermath of this incident with all of these missing kids, we'll follow the school teacher and then one of the parents and then a cop and all these different characters, and we'll see the same events from slightly different angles. We'll see different events that add more and more answers to the mystery. And I love the way it does it because these character stories will be going along, and as soon as you get to like the most interesting thing that happens to them, the thing that makes you go, oh, I'm gonna need an explanation for that, I can't wait, it cuts to a different character story and you have to wait. And it's so frustrating, but like in the best possible way, because I enjoyed every character and every story. So even though I was frustrated wanting to see what the next step in that character story would be, the fact is, every single character story is giving us another piece of the puzzle, and by the end it all adds up into something really good. So I actually really like the way that they did it, just kind of teasing you and leaving you hanging on those important moments and keeping me invested and wanting to see how the other character stories were also going to lead to those moments. We have a great cast. Julia Garner is great. She was always amazing in Ozark, and it's been nice seeing her have this success lately with this. Fantastic Four back to back. We don't really have to talk about Wolfman. Josh Brolin is great. Alden Ehrenreich, Benedict Wong, Amy Madigan is a standout performance in this for sure, and this is a character who could have failed miserably, who could have been way too over the top with her character design and with the performance, but she nails it. She is weird and creepy and very memorable. And while I liked every character's storyline, there were some that I was more invested in than others, but the ones that I was less invested in, they still work because those characters find information and things happen in their story that adds to the overall narrative, starts giving you answers, so I'm very intrigued as to what else they're going to find. And they're also funny. One character in particular, when we started following them, I was like, do we really need to devote an entire segment to this guy? But it turns out it was one of the funniest sections of the movie, so it all ends up being okay because the movie is very funny. I wouldn't call it a horror comedy. I would say it's a horror that just has comedy, and it can be really hard to blend the two. But Zach Cregger seems to have a knack for it, because there is some creepy imagery and some effective jump scares and a good use of silence and the sound design to just build tension, as for so much of the movie, we have no idea what could possibly be going on and what could have caused these kids to disappear. And yet there were also a lot of genuinely hilarious scenes, and I didn't think they interfered with each other at all. The humor did not undercut the scares. There were just really good scare scenes and really good funny scenes, and even, especially towards the end, scenes that were simultaneously disturbing and funny in a shocking way, and that can be so hard to pull off. You can come across as too goofy or just kind of awkward because we can't tell what you're really going for, but he really nails it. And it's a great movie to see with the crowd because there was a lot of laughter where there was supposed to be. There were a lot of people jumping. There were a lot of nuh-uh type reactions when something creepy would come on screen. And it just plays out in such a unique way. When you get all the answers on paper, you could summarize it really simplistically and in a way that you've seen in other horror movies, but it's about the way the story is told. It's about all the little details. It's about all that buildup that make it feel special. Because for so long, you have no idea what kind of horror movie this is even going to be. Was it aliens? Was it demons? What exactly are we going to be tackling here? And by the time you find out, it fits very nicely into those horror tropes, but the entire movie, you didn't know that that's what it was going to be doing. You didn't know that that's the type of movie you were watching necessarily, and so it still feels fresh and unique within that subgenre. There are sudden moments of brutality in which there are great practical gore effects, some great dreamlike imagery that keeps you guessing, keeps you wondering what this is all about as it builds piece by piece this very engaging mystery. I know a movie was effective when people are leaving the theater and I hear a bunch of discussion about it, and that happened with this one. Everybody stood up and was talking about, that was wild, that was so crazy, and talking about all the individual scenes, and yeah, it is. It was wild. Some truly insane shit happens. I will say it's almost inevitable that the build-up will be more interesting than the payoff. There are only so many possible things that could be happening, and so the story structure and all of those incredibly unique things leading up to the payoff are a little more engaging. The payoff is good, it makes sense, it's effective, I loved the ending, but it's a little more along the lines of something you could expect. Mainly, I wish there was more done with a certain character's motivation. There's a part where it implies something pretty intriguing involving the film's title. You find out why it's called Weapons. And I really wanted to know more about that, and then it just never actually really goes anywhere. And the actual motivation of this person was much more simple and something that we have seen many, many times before. And I was like, oh, you kind of implied that there was something more unique going on, and you even named the movie after it. So that's a little disappointing. And I do think some of its ideas are a little bit undercooked in general. There is some imagery in these dream sequences where you wonder, what does that mean? Does it mean anything? Was it just weird dream shit? The movie is definitely making points about paranoia, about how a traumatic event like this can affect people, can affect this town. People are pointing fingers and getting outraged. Josh Brolin's character is blaming the teacher, and he's being an asshole about it, and we can tell that she's a nice, innocent person. But you can also understand as a parent how he just can't handle the mystery. He can't handle not knowing, and he needs to blame somebody. But there are certain themes that the movie kind of hints at that I won't go into detail about that are really just kind of hinted at. They're in there a little bit. And a lot of people that I've talked to about the movie so far seem to agree that they're in there. But then I ask them, yeah, but what is it saying about that? And they all so far have answered, oh, I don't know. And yeah, I don't know either. There are certain things that it seems like, oh, is that what this is about? Is this whole thing like a metaphor, an allegory for this? And it kind of seems like that was the approach, because some of the ideas and imagery directly lead people to conclude that. But then the way the actual narrative unfolds doesn't really support that. It's just kind of in there, but it's not expanded upon. And if it just wants to be a kooky, crazy horror ride, that's fine, and it is a good one. But having that extra little bit of commentary could have made it even more memorable. And like I said, it seems like it is in there. It's got these things in there that are hinting at these ideas. So if you're gonna do that, commit. And by the end, it feels very vague. You can stretch and you can look at ways where this might kind of be trying to say something specific about this thing, but it would be a stretch. So it has a few issues of maybe biting off a little bit more than it could chew, not expanding on things quite enough. Maybe that's partially because of the structure, because it's cutting around, showing so many different things that didn't have time to build up everything quite as much as it might have needed to. And it's already 2 hours, but I was having a really good time. I wouldn't have minded a little bit extra runtime. Still very entertaining though, a lot of fun, creepy imagery, funny, unique structure, wild, crazy shit, good gore. Zach Cregger, I know you're making Resident Evil, and I'm sure he can do a really good job with that, but I don't know that I want to see him do just a straightforward story. I want more weird shit. I did prefer Barbarian, but this is still really good and very different. It doesn't feel like he only has one bag of tricks to pull from. It's similar in that it keeps you guessing and that it's unique, but it's also very different in its execution, so even people who didn't like Barbarian could very easily like this. I think in many ways, this one would be more palatable. There are certain things in Barbarian that are so strange and out of nowhere that they will turn some people off, and this one I feel like would be less divisive in that way. That's also kind of why I like Barbarian more, because I was absolutely the type to get into the weirdness of that film. But it's the kind of original movie, the kind of original horror that definitely deserves support, and it's good to see so far people really liking it. So this is definitely one to check out for horror fans. I had a great time, can't wait to watch it again and see if maybe I'm able to put some of that imagery together a little bit more, maybe feel a little bit more of a coherent thematic through line on my second watch, see if I notice little things that I didn't notice the first time. One of my favorites of the year for sure, but let me know your thoughts on Weapons down in the comments below, whether you agree or disagree with anything that I said here. Let's have that conversation. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you want to see more from me. I really appreciate the support. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.